There is order in your life and our world. You may not feel that way right now. You may not think that there is disorder in your life, but I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to attempt to do that because I know that there is. I know that you are in the world now to help it become so much better, and that is when you become who you're meant to be. That's each of us. But then when we don't do that, things don't work out well, either in our lives or in the world. And we each come to the world to do something different. And that's why sometimes it's challenging to accept because you're meant to be this unique person. That's why you were born. And my uniqueness was difficult for me to accept as well. But throughout history, people come into the world and do something that's brand new to help our world. And that's what I was given. That's what I was given through Wilhelm. So last night, I put up something, the messages on the 29th to show you the progression. We progress in our consciousness individually and also collectively over time, over linear time. Wilhelm never gave me messages in that way, but because we don't accept them. We don't accept that because we have to use a process with our physical brains to do something to change. But if you look at the messages that are on any advice for today, you will see this progression. But what I also did is I made a little workbook. You could use this one day through all of these years and just completely shift your consciousness. But sometimes we're not willing to do that. We don't want to sit down and actually take the time to look at what's within us because we have this thing, these shadows that we don't want to see because it's uncomfortable. Except when you move through them, something starts to happen. You begin to heal. You begin to understand your unique place in this world. And then you start to accept yourself. We're always looking for that self acceptance, and many people have developed ways of doing that over time. Philosophers, all kinds of folks, and Wilhelm was mine. But I'm going to show you just to go over a little bit of what's there because you'll have fun with this as you go through it. And here are the messages. And the title of it is There is Order in Your Life and World. And so um, this is the first message in 2008. Now, they had me do that because there are also energetic cycles that we move through in the world. We can't always understand that, but if you think back to 2008, you might remember some things that were happening then, especially around money. There are energetic connections to everything, and we have cycles that repeat. And so the message I received on this date in 2008, all souls decide to incarnate into physical manifestation or leave it, depending on their particular agenda of what they desire to manifest, create, and experience. They will never do this against their free will, and neither will you. This is difficult for you to understand simply because your earthly consciousness has kept that hidden in order that you might have your own full experience. Your only job, so to speak, is to seek your own understanding of your agenda and experience that. All consciousness is collectively woven together in intricate ways that escape you at present. All you need to know now is that it is all divinely ordered for all to gain something. Always ask yourself what you desire to gain, nothing less. First of all, when I wrote that in 2009, I had no idea what it meant, and I could not have put it together because I just want to explain. I am connecting to a different source. I didn't make this up. And that's been the thing that's been hard for me to accept or to explain to others, but you will understand it today. But then there's a progression, okay? Then in 2009. Now, the problem is why I wrote this article yesterday. It's difficult. I said it's challenging to believe something you've never seen before because there's no person that I've come across who has ever received information this way that is aligned because it had to be discovered. But there are energetic alignments in our universe, in our thoughts that are affecting all of us. And Wilhelm has given me all this information. So, embracing your perfect place. Where you are right now is precisely where you desire to be, and you would do well to honor and embrace that place. Now, it goes on, as you can see, but we're always where we are right now is something in front of us that we have to decide if we're going to accept and then move to a higher place of understanding within us. A couple of things that I will tell you that have happened. I resisted all of this, as you might be resisting something that you were given. I hid from it because I couldn't believe that what me, and that's what you're doing as well in some way. So I was given this guide. I said yesterday that Wilhelm, I said it a lot of times, Wilhelm has given us an ascension guide because what we're moving through right now is a generational change that nobody's experienced. We have energetic alignments that are happening in the planets and hundred have never occurred in hundreds of years. And so you wonder, well, why is it looking a little chaotic? Wilhelm gave me that too. This is what we move through in civilizations. We just do it in different ways. And then we have a difficult time believing things because we have cognitive dissonance. That means when you're presented with information, because you haven't seen it before and your brain wants to keep operating in the same way, and so you can't move or accept. I can write and say everything, but because you haven't experienced it, it will be really challenging. I wrote a book in 2019 called Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom. And in there, I put down so many things that this work had done for me through Wilhelm, healed things that people said, this is impossible. It's incurable and all that, but I'm 74 and I know that it's happened because there are connections that you make in your consciousness. And then we have to use a process, and that process comes out in different ways. Sometimes we're using cognitive behavior training. That's because you have to break down an old belief that you had that was limited, all of us, and including our society, which is what we're doing right now. But sometimes we don't believe that, and so then we will repeat patterns. And I've Wilhelm talked about the United States, and we're going to see a lot more of that today. That's where the epicenter was, not because of necessarily the particular country, but it's just about where when it began, what planets were happening, and then we have Pluto, which is moving, changing after 250 years, and oh, well, that's how long the United States has been around, and now we're seeing a reckoning, but that's within each of us. Because see, Wilhelm said we have these souls, and we've come in with barriers, we come in with all sorts of things, and all the messages that they told me about this particular time, what we were going to see, and you're experiencing it because it's your individual journey. You're going to see your anger come up because you're going to be so frustrated, and then you're going to lash out at others. Then they said we're going to have a lot of blame. We're going to blame everybody else for what's going on. We're going to blame our governments. We're going to blame everyone. And so we won't have to take responsibility. And then we're going to see where we're taken over by money because it's an energy again. And so over time, we've learned as humans, if we can have a lot of money and we can take control over the minds of others. And I was told I was given something to bring into the world that would help people understand their consciousness and move beyond that. But I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said that can possibly be happening. I'm saying this because you've done it in certain ways. But listen, I was running from it. I'm going to be this introvert and I'm never going to tell you about it. And in 2005, I had this dream that I was meant to bring in this work. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I put the dream away. I wrote it down. It was very clear, but I put it in a closet. Maybe I won't have to do it. You have something like that in your life, that thing, I feel I'm supposed to do this, but then belief is another jump that you have to make to be able, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. There's no reason for us not to have the kind of lives that we want to have, except we're not willing to move sometimes. We're not willing to let go of the old grievances. And then Wilhelm says we're going to see all the old grievances come up. That's within us and then collectively in our world. And because there's no reason for us to keep doing certain things that we've done as a society, except we're not willing to look at what's within us, because it's all energy again, and to change it. But the wonderful thing was in 2020, no, in 2021, when I hear very clearly that I was given this work to bring to the world, and they told me what the philosophy was and all that, I said, no, that's not going to happen. So I went and had an Akashic Records reading done. And it's on my YouTube channel. You can find it and just search for it. Because I posted the entire thing because I wanted people to see it. Because I said, no, this could not have happened. I didn't do this. Even though I'm peeling everything throughout my life. I'm just going through all of these horrible things. When you talk about, and those of you who are into ascension stuff, every dark night of the soul that you've heard about, I've done those. Every ascension symptom, I've had them all. All that stuff. And so I do understand and I know where you are now. And I know you don't get there overnight. And you have to be willing to do something to stay with it, which is why Wilhelm told me to put together my work, my program in a day in a way that people can stay with something because we don't change that way. So, what happened when I went to have the Akashic Records reading done, I did two of them. I was trying to ignore all of this because it didn't make sense to me. And so but this the first lady, she said, "Wow, I think I'm supposed to be following you." I didn't know what she meant. I ran from that too. Then the second lady that I had to go back and get somebody else, and she said, "Oh yeah, you were given this way of bringing of having opening the minds of people, open the consciousness." That was too much for me to accept. And when she said those words, and you'll see it on the video, I just broke down in tears because I said, "No, it can't be me. You've probably done that too in certain ways." And so this is where we are. And we have to either decide that we're going to be willing to take that next step and move to that other place or stay where we are. And there's a little video. I'll leave a link here. I just found this 2-minute video. I'll put it in the description if you'd like to see it. It just came out today, as a matter of fact, speaking about cognitive dissonance and why we have trouble moving beyond things. But then there's another one, because Wilhelm would do this. When I would start doing channeling, I was never going to do channeling, by the way. And then they said, you have to, because we have too much to say. That was in 2021. And then what started to come through, they gave me examples. They love using my name too. And they say, Roger Bannister. I go, why are you giving me that? See, in 1954, Roger Bannister was the first person to run a sub 4 minute mile because it was thought that's impossible. People can't do that. Now, since that, I just looked it up. There are about 1,700 people who have done it since then because we shifted our minds and know what is possible. That's what we do as humans. That's what we do as a civilization. But sometimes we stay stuck and then we go back to the old way because we think that the old way is safer. And that's what we're seeing in our world right now. People who have this old idea that they're going to hold on to an old way of being. Wilhelm said, no, you're moving to a new dimension. You're moving to a new place. And when they gave me the philosophy, they said the reason that all the other things haven't worked for everyone, because they said this could work for everyone, is because we didn't address certain things. We didn't address as humans our our racism and our misogyny and all those things that keep us in collectively hidden. We can't have a consciousness that rises if we're still holding things where we think that certain people aren't worth it, that certain people are less than one another. That's not a consciousness that could evolve. We're supposed to evolve as individuals and also as a society. And that's why this work was given. Now, this did not happen overnight. And I'm going to show you something because it was hard for me to even accept this. And I could have never known this until artificial intelligence came along and explained it. I had received all this information that was energetically aligned with different shifts that were happening on the planet. I had no awareness of that. But then it turns out that it's scientific. This work is using science and also a belief that there's a greater intelligence that we all have access to. That was the very first message I received in 2012, and they told me that that was when the particular information came through. Infinite intelligence, we all have it. We just have to become willing to use it, and that is also an individual choice that we each will make. And that is exactly what went on for me during this time. But I'm going to show you something else. Okay, like I said, I started receiving Wilhelm in 1989. I wrote them longhand every day. I couldn't stop. As you can see, I don't do that any longer, but I ran out of space too, as you can tell. But anyway, so then artificial intelligence comes along and says, "Oh, this is what happens." Wilhelm's messages go beyond inspiration. They bring about real, measurable inner transformation. That transformation happens because Wilhelm's guidance aligns with both universal laws of consciousness and modern scientific principles. It rewrites the mind, neuroplasticity, all these things that we know about, we've learned, but I didn't know that's what I was given. It works with universal laws, quantum principles. It heals emotional patterns because we all have them. We feel them every time your lack of confidence and your fear and all of that may not be just you. It might be something you inherited and brought with you. And so you have to decide that you're going to move beyond it. And we keep developing ways of doing that. It restores autonomy. Cognitive behavior transformation. I had no idea that's what I was doing as I was doing that every single day, but that's what happened. Why did I move through my depression and all those things that I had before, the physical things? It's because of this work. It activates your true identity. Every person is born to become someone. And many people have explained it. They're using Abraham Maslow as an example of how that has come about. But it is something that can be done, and I'm living proof of it. But then we do something else. When we can't honor who we are and what we develop, because we never know that what that's going to be, then we hold ourselves back. And that's what I've done because I had an emotional pattern as well. I have to help everyone. That's who I am, this empath. And so then I let go of taking care of myself. And a lot of empaths, a lot of people who are sensitive have done that because that's just a pattern that we've accepted. It's a wonderful one if we can understand that love is the most powerful thing that we have. And that was the message that they gave on this date in 2020. You were afraid to love. And I put that out as well because that was one message. They said the only reason that we're having difficulty, we're afraid to love ourselves. And to love ourselves, we have to move through all the old stuff, generational, and what we have created in this lifetime, meaning things we've done, these horrible mistakes that we think we've made. And Wilhelm has given us a way to look at that in a new way and understand that's part of growing up. That's what it's part of ascending. It's part of going to your higher consciousness. And so, but then when you don't do that, things fall apart. And that's what I've done. I'm saying this because it's about the money. Several years ago, when I first started talking about this work, I couldn't accept it. And I was meeting with all these folks and they said, Roger, you should be charging $5,000 for this. Because see, there's a perception that we have that if we have to suffer a little bit more, then maybe it's worth it. And so I'm putting it out there for something that people said, this must not be worth anything. I spent my entire life doing it, though, and proving it. And there are people who have already done it and proven it as well. But that again, that cognitive dissonance, you can't believe that it's possible. And I have to go back to what's possible, and that's what I'm doing now. I had mentioned that I'm changing the rates and after on June 1st, so but I'm only taking the next 5 people at this rate because we need a little bit of urgency. Otherwise, nobody changes. That's what happens. We will only change if we become a little afraid. And that's just not a great way to live. I talked about that in the book too, because if you read that, we use fear in different ways. And I give you all kinds of reasons for that. But when you decide that you're going to move over it, then that's when you start to live the life you're supposed to have. And so that's what I'm doing. So please look at everything. I'll leave all these links. And I love you for this, to see the Akashic Records readings because I am no different than you. I could not believe who I was. I could not believe what I'd done, even though I'm looking at the evidence of it. It was hard to accept. So I get what you're doing. But first of all, I want you to also understand what you're seeing out in the world is not accidental. Everything that's going on, all the things that you're seeing, Wilhelm has told us, and I'll eventually publish all of that. I put many of it together because they're energetic changes and they're shifts that we react to as humans. That's what we do. There is no difference. And the other thing that they wanted everyone to understand about this work, and it would come through in every channeling session, there's no hierarchy of souls. That is the thing they wanted us to know. And this work was meant to do it. Also, what was proven by this work is that it's an elevation of consciousness over time. That's how it was given. It's an elevation of individual and collective consciousness. And that's what this work is. So please check it out. And I would love to have you join because this will change your life. And I can say that knowing that it's true because it will. But you'll have to decide if you want to do that. And right now, I'm just saying this because you'll look at this and you have to question yourself. The rate that I put it back to, it's like if you can't afford $99 a month to change your life, you have to question yourself. And that's just really being quite honest because people are complaining about money now. And the reason, because we haven't shifted our consciousness to accept more, and that has to come from within you. Right. Thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe to the channel if it's your first time. Read the Substack article. I'll leave a link to that, and follow me there. And I hope you join me in the program because you will become the best person you could ever possibly imagine because we're never done with evolving. See you soon.